Round 2 on the realness.
Round 2.
I'm excited
The
about
next
this.
phase.
We've both changed so much. I think we're substantially, at least 300% wiser each.
Definitely. Yeah. I feel pretty wise.
And since then, I've had a retreat. You've had the Flow Summit?
Flow State Summit.
Flow State Summit,
Yeah.
excuse me.
Yeah, I totally wanted you at the Flow State Summit, but I honored you had that retreat going, and I think we were both vibing at the same time, doing the thing, so.
I felt your vibes.
Did you?
I think your vibes actually spilled over into the retreat. I didn't tell anybody. That your presence was there.
What was up with the face painting? Because I saw a bunch of people with the face painting. Can you just fill me in on that?
The face painting was awesome. So the face painting was, so running retreats for whatever reason has been something that just kind of popped up. And as we're getting ready to run the retreat, I was just thinking about how much work it was to do it and how easy it was to do that work. It wasn't frustrating. It felt so right. And I was thinking about doing some men's retreats. So I've been kind of really drawn to Costa Rica. I'm going down there next month, November.
Where
Going
are
down
you
in November
going?
to Soltara.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure.
Soltara. I've never heard of it.
I've been to Costa Rica. It's a new retreat center.
Okay, but what city?
I'm not sure.
Is it on the Pacific side? No,
Listen,
ring a
I
bell?
don't know much about geography.
Okay.
I actually failed geography in high school.
That's cool.
So
First time to Costa Rica then?
First time to Costa Rica.
Awesome.
I just know I fly into San Jose, and then I'm
It's a
I'm taken care
mecca
of.
for healing. It's a blue zone. Like people live longer there, and keep going.
So I was thinking about doing some drum circles and some things like that. Like I think it's really fun to like sing. And one thing that when I run retreats or work with people that I've seen is a lot of people let stuff go, like singing and dancing and playing. And I love the drum for that. I think the drum is so fun to be able to get out and almost just like dance and express yourself, and it's loud and it's not that difficult. As long as you can find the bass in it and get together, it's really empowering. And I was like, oh, we should paint our faces. And then I was like, wait, we should paint each other's faces. And then I was like, wait a second. Painting someone's face as an empathy practice would be really fun. So I had everyone do is the person being painted held 12 colors of paint, and it was like finger painting, right? So you had to go. We had a line, and we just kind of rotated through, and each person had their color, and they would essentially paint on that person's face, kind of a shape or some kind of representation of how they saw that person, and we all end up with these crazy like neck, face, like almost like war paint style, but there was hearts and stars and squiggly lines, and people would take like some shape and turn it into something else, and we ended up having this really cool experience, and that led into the dance portion that Kirsten led. So it was just this really fun Saturday night. Everybody had really gotten close by that point and shared a lot, and it was, I said at the end of the retreat, one of my favorite things was we had a really great laugh to cry ratio.
Yeah. What's a good laugh to cry ratio for you?
2 to 1.
2 to 1 laughs for every cry?
Yeah.
Not the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because you end up in we did our best to, just like on this show, like create a space where we're not taking ourselves too seriously. We're here to have a good time.
Interesting.
With an intentional purpose.
There's this whole conversation happening around like festival, like we're being drawn back into this like festival community, tribal community, and both those things that you described, like the painting on each other's faces and the drum. Have you done much like African dance? Have you ever tried African dance?
I haven't tried it, no.
Yeah, it gets into just moving your entire body like with the drum beat, and it gets pretty primal, I would say.
Yeah, there's something I didn't. So growing up, even I was this big kid, and I'm sure you can imagine. Like I was 6 foot tall in the 6th grade and around 200 pounds. So I was a big man.
Yeah.
At
6th grade.
In 6th grade.
Wow.
So I'm this, and you're fat and you smell weird and you're clumsy. Like I said, I was like a Great Dane puppy. Like I got a Great Dane when I was a junior in high school, and this puppy was just like running around and falling all over himself. And I was like, oh, that's me. He would literally trip on his own ear. I'm like, oh, that was me when I was like, 10. It was this really awkward phase, and I remember just wanting to be smaller. I just wanted to be I just wanted to hide. I wanted to just compress myself down and kind of contract in a way to where I could just be like everyone else, because it was awkward, and you were awkward, and you couldn't dance and move you couldn't just blend in and kind of like learn without there being this almost like spotlight on you. It felt like all the time. And I carried that into my adult life, so where I didn't even start dancing until I was in my late 20s.
Yeah.
And just actually starting to being like, all right, cool, if I'm having a good time and not like getting out of control, then we're doing all right. And everybody's gonna have a good time. I don't need to be like self-conscious about that. But that took me years to unpack.
I would totally want to see you dance at some point.
Oh,
Hopefully while you're here in Seattle,
you
like
definitely
go to
will.
one of those events, ecstatic.
So have you done some drumming and some African dance?
One of my instructors, Irina, was really passionate about African dance, and also another student of mine, Scott Anderson. So we had a couple people come into like a post yoga class where they brought in the actual African dance, and I've also done it at Envision Festival, which is in Costa Rica.
Oh,
highly recommend you go to that if
I've
you're
heard
there.
Amazing things, yeah.
Yeah, so just done it in group settings like that, but people that actually are really into African dance, like they go to class. There's communities like you can plug in, and if you're really into like learning that style, there's a few key movements that are pretty rad and pretty freeing. I highly recommend it.
I love that. I actually was in Toronto just last week, and there was this African drum store. And I walk in, I like bookmarked this place, and we had heard a bunch of awesome things about it. We wandered up into a drum circle towards the end and just kind of caught up with some people there. And we walk in, this guy was so badass, this African man, and she ships these drums in from Africa, these djembes and all kinds of a whole everything you could think of. And this little, like almost like in a strip center in kind of like Koreatown. It was so interesting.
Was this?
In Toronto.
Oh, in Toronto. You just got in Toronto.
And we had to playing drums with this guy for like an hour, and he was like basically just set up, and then these other people came in. We had like this 8-person circle, and we were learning how to play, and it was one of the most, I was buzzing from that experience for like, I couldn't sleep that night. I had such a good time.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's something about that community.
Well, if you're drawn to that, get yourself a drum, start showing up at those places, because they would love you. Like, you're a big guy, you can definitely hold a good beat. I had a pretty cool experience one time at, are you familiar with Alex Gray? He's a psychedelic.
The artist?
The artist.
Yeah.
He had
if you do LSD once, you know who Alex Gray is.
Yeah, actually, he hosted this gathering at his house in Wappinger Falls when I used to live in New York and upstate. So I went to his house, and he did a live painting, him and his wife, and it was a drug-free zone, and there was like a drum circle at his house. So that was one of my best, favorite experiences with a drum circle, because there was 20 drummers around in an actual circle, and everyone just losing themselves to the music, completely drug-free, and in this environment where Alex Gray had just created a painting right there. I was just kind of blown away. It was a good
that's
experience.
Incredible. Wow.
Yeah, check it out. Oh, I think he still does it at the Sacred Chapel of Mirrors. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta check that place out.
He invites people to his home. Anyone can come. He does intensives too, painting and artist intensives that you can go, and they're super affordable. Yeah,
wow,
the guy's a man.
That's awesome. There's something about when there's a drug-free environment and people are still losing themselves a little bit through the music and to movement. It shows you the power of that, right? Because I think a lot of times it's I'm at a festival or I'm at wherever, and I'm just cycling between Molly and LSD and then mushrooms and then back, and then you're at Burning Man, and it's you're there for 10 days, and 75% of the time, if you're not sleeping, you're on some kind of substance. And I think we don't let ourselves experience the power of just the movement. As I say just the movement, almost like I'm belittling just movement or just sound.
We have the capability to have psychedelic experiences within our own mind with breath work, transformational breath work. I've had some pretty crazy, experiences with that, seeing visuals, seeing colors and things, and yeah.
Seeing visuals in breathwork?
Yeah, with breathwork. There was at my yoga teacher training at Yandara, which is in this yoga community off in Baja, Mexico. It's a commune off the grid completely, and you're just separated from normal life. But there was a woman in our training who had an out of body or a death experience where she actually died and came back from just doing breath work. So the stuff's powerful. It's definitely helps you shed the layers of stuff that's preventing you from living your highest self if you really want to tap into it.
I think it's a great place to start as well. I think people go straight to ayahuasca. It's a little bit it's
digging up the dirt.
It's I'm gonna go just wander into the darkness, into just this darkest parts of myself. No big deal. And it's maybe you should do a Wim Hof clinic first and just get into your body.
Have you done a lot of ayahuasca?
I've done 4 times.
Cool.
Yeah, I got 4, and then I've got 4 while I'm in Costa Rica the next time.
Oh, nice.
But I don't do it as often, and it has to almost serendipitously happen.
Yeah, I've definitely been I've had the opportunity to do it. We talked about this on the last podcast, but I'm feeling the resistance to going that route, to doing that shadow work right now. So I'm just waiting for when that is very clear and that's what I'm meant to be doing in my path, I'll go there. But I'm not going to force it. I'm not going to do it just because everyone's doing it or everyone's talking about it. But
that's the worst reason to do it. I think it's the worst reason to do anything is because everybody's doing it.
Yeah. Well,
if everybody's doing it, that means you should definitely pump the brakes. Because they're using, I mean, there's so many opportunities. Like, if I wanted to, I've done ayahuasca 4 times. I could, with the notoriety of this podcast and whatever community I've built, I could probably get 25 people to an ayahuasca ceremony led by me. If I felt like that. You see what I'm saying? Let's think about that though. Like, I have no qualifications to do that, and I could probably make that happen.
That's an interesting thing to say.
I don't want to do that. I'm not an ayahuasca practitioner, but I'm saying it doesn't take much to be able to, like, oh yeah, I got this.
Yeah.
And that's
what about leading mushroom ceremonies or leading other psychedelic journeys? Like, how do you feel about that?
Well, that's different in a way.
Yeah. Because you have more experience with it.
I have more experience, but it wasn't. Are you familiar with Paul Selig by any chance?
It's not somebody that I listen to often, but I've heard the name.
Yeah, he's a channel, right? And this is a different. Not diverting, I'll come back to it, but he's a channel, and you can tell that he is genuine and when he's channeling, because I feel like he's almost like kind of annoyed that he has to do it sometimes. Like he's this conduit, and it's something that's a gift that he has, and I think he's grateful that he has it. But he didn't ask for it in that way. It wasn't like he was drawn to it and called to do it. And I feel like if you're going to be a practitioner of the medicine, you better be really fucking sure that you're not doing it because you want to feel important or that you have something special to offer. You should feel called to it. And with me particularly, I feel like that with some things, and I'm being extremely apprehensive about the way that I take that on. Yeah. To the point where I'm even I'm cautious to speak about it. But I think that there's something to be said for being really called to do something and feeling very genuine about it. But you got to not question yourself in the way that you perceive the world is. You got to look at it through a critical lens in a way, at least an inquisitive lens. I think
also it's important to really understand. Like, I come from such a strong science background, but to really understand how the psychedelics work in your body on a scientific level, also experientially, also experiencing different doses, different environments, like what is the ideal environment, and then taking the psychology of like breaking down that experience and helping facilitate that experience is all so critical. So I feel like that would be, that'd be like a 3-year process to like really delve into if you're going to do it right. Like if you're going to facilitate something like that, it's like doing all the steps to doing it perfect. Actually, recently had my first DMT experience.
In DMT?
Just DMT.
Yeah.
Just straight DMT.
It's like your common not 5-MeO.
I believe it was just straight old DMT.
So there's two different kinds of DMT. So you have NN-DMT, which is what you most probably did, and then 5-MeO DMT, which is the toad, as they say.
Okay.
So yeah, you did NN-DMT.
There's no toad.
Yeah, there's no toads involved. No toads were harmed.
My friend who facilitated that journey had been asking me, like, and been inviting me on that journey for like a year. Like, we had been talking about it. He's a really dear friend of mine, and he had facilitated so many of those journeys. We did a little hike down to the water, like the sun was setting, so we were just literally right on the water in the Puget Sound and just like in the most perfect ideal environment. And I had a little fear about it, because anytime you're experiencing a new psychedelic and you don't know what to expect, you're like, all right, I'm just gonna take the leap. And everyone talks about DMT as being like the bungee jump, like you're going deep. So he just was ready to like hold that space for me. And we did one, like the first round was just like getting used to it and getting accustomed to it. And then we did a second round like 20 minutes later. And that second round was like, whoa.
Yeah. The first one kind of like, it like knocks the dust off. You're like, okay, that's what this is about. And the second one is where things actually set in.
Yeah.
Were you guys blindfolded?
No.
If you
blindfolded?
If you blindfold and put noise canceling headphones on with music.
Oh, all right.
It goes from being like 8 minutes or so to like I was in for 17 minutes.
Interesting, huh? Yeah, ours was pretty short. It was like 8 minutes, but it was 8 minutes full on, like where you're just like
it's
taking
like
it
shot
all
out of
in.
a cannon.
Yeah, and I left feeling like there was layers of stuck energy or fears. I felt like as I walked out of there, I was like, all right, I let go. I moved some fears out of my like physical body, so it felt really good.
The funny thing is with DMT. In smoking in DMT, so what you did, and I haven't done 5-MeO, so I can't speak to that, but it feels like you get bust it into a million pieces of sacred geometry, obviously. And then you get to put yourself back together and leave some things out if you don't want them anymore. That's kind of what, for whatever reason, that's what I get. It's like this kind of blasting apart, and then maybe there's some trauma or some fear or something that you can little by little start to just leave, like let those things go as you kind of, put yourself back together.
Well, I'd been cleansing from alcohol and cannabis and caffeine for a while, so I was in a good space to do it.
Oh,
and I was like, this is
yeah.
perfect. So, I felt like it was kind of like acid trip light almost. It was like the very condensed version for the busy entrepreneur, fit this in on your Tuesday evening,
Yeah, it's so funny because it does go fast. It goes so fast.
And I almost felt, I'm like, did that really happen? Like, wow, all right. And I'm fine. Like, I can just like carry on, because with LSD, it's like you're in it for a good 8 hours. Like, you're
Do you have a lot of experience with LSD?
More so LSD and mushrooms than ayahuasca. Yeah. And every time it's always like a ceremonious like thing with friends or in nature or in a place where I can move a lot and dance a lot. I experience the world a lot through movement and expressing myself through dance.
When did you start really expressing yourself with movement?
Ooh,
is that something you've always been
doing?
That's
a good question. Well, I've always identified as like an athlete. So I've been doing cross country and volleyball and softball.
You jogged in the woods for a sport?
Yeah. I ran in a circle. But I would say like getting more into yoga and getting more into dance and flow arts has only been in the past like 5 years that I've gotten really into just like full on like dancing in front of people, where I'm usually, if I'm at a festival or I'm like, people come up and like comment to me, they're like, you're like an amazing dancer, and I'm like, I want to study modern dance. My friend is actually teaching at this local college, so I'm going to take her class and just learn from her. She has her MFA in dance, so
you're going to learn some proper dance.
Yeah, I'm going to actually learn the modern dance, because I have all the mechanics like from my yoga and 60 flow training and stuff, but now I'm like, all right, let's put that into choreography and expression and performance. So I've been moving into that realm and now identifying more as like a performance artist, or getting there, especially with the steel mace, like dancing with steel mace and stuff.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
all
and
right.
hopefully fire mace soon.
You're going to start playing with fire.
Yeah, there's this thing that you can put on your mace called Kevlar, and it's just like you light it on fire. It's like a giant wick. So actually we had a few people at Flow State Summit that were doing some mace flows, and they were just improvising. They're flow artists and fire artists anyways, so they just were making it up, and I'm like, wow, that was amazing. Like, how long have you been doing that? They're like, oh yeah, I just picked it up and was doing it. And it's like, it's so intuitive once you get your flaming mace.
Yeah.
You too can become a flow artist.
I feel like it's one of those things where you have to do it well, or the consequences are there. So it's like, you get into flow really quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're like, well, I don't want to set myself on fire.
Yeah.
I prefer to stay not on fire.
There's a certain level of competency you need to have, I think, before you start flinging around a flaming ancient weapon.
If someone's like, hey, you want to swing this mace around that's on fire? I'd say, yeah. Nine times out of 10, I'd say yeah.
Actually, that's kind of one of my goals for next year. Like, I missed going to Burning Man this year. I gave up my ticket at the last minute just because I had so many projects that I just couldn't feel good about leaving, like my brand new studio and Flow State Summit, loose ends and things.
You just bailed on Burning Man.
I bailed on Burning Man. Like, it was like a big decision for me, but I feel like next year I was like, whoa, I actually need to go and like create a camp. Like, I want to have a camp of flow artists in the Flow State crew. Like, I want...
That sounds like a very Burning Man thing for you to do. So let's bring it back to the Flow State Summit, though. So tell me about that. So that was your first. Is that the biggest event you put together?
Oh yeah, that's definitely the biggest. People. I'll tell you. I mean, what do you want to know?
give me the rundown. So where did the idea come from, and then what did it feel like to put that together, and how was it?
Sure. Yeah. So the Flow State.
3 phases of the event.
Flow State Summit was my idea for my peace leadership project from my yoga teacher Noah Maze, based out of LA. He's the amazing teacher, and in one of our modules it was like our assignment was create something that demonstrates peace. So
demonstrates peace.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a lot of dogma in both the fitness world and the yoga world.
No, dude.
Like, drink this Kool-Aid, and you will then be... Yeah. So the Flow State Summit for me really represents a merging of all disciplines and demonstrating that we're stronger together when we skill share and when we break bread together. So we had Wim Hof, level 3 Wim Hof instructors there facilitating Wim Hof both Saturday and Sunday morning, which would then move into our community breakfast. It was all, super organic, yummy, like proteins and healthy fats. And so we all ate together. And then that then segued into various workshops. We had like a giant stage. Meanwhile, this is on a giant 60-acre property that's ran and operated by circus artists that I just happen to live at with my tiny home and my 5-year-old kid.
Oh, so you live there?
I live there,
okay,
yeah.
So you brought these people to your house.
I brought them to my house that happens to be
homestead.
a festival grounds. I live on a festival grounds. Yeah. Side note. So I know this property really well, and I saw its potential for an event like this. So we had Leo Savage doing steel mace. We had Mark Wildman doing machete and staff fighting. People just really channeling their inner warrior, like in a real way. This was like, if you think of like a Wanderlust as being kind of like a feminine event, this was like the dudes event, but also like the hardcore yoga chicks event. Like it was a bunch of beautiful, strong people that embody flow and have these flow arts and wanted to explore that in nature. We also had a dome, which had embody love workshops, which is like a body image sort of style workshop that helps you with your loving yourself more. And Minta Allred led that, and she opened it up to dudes for the first time, which was cool.
I love how that's happening a little bit.
Yeah, because usually it's like all women in these workshops, and she had created an opportunity for guys to really look at their inner dialogue about how they view themselves and how they view their physical vessel, and like giving them the opportunity to like let go of like the body shaming that's been subconsciously instilled in them for a long time.
Heard that.
So basically in a nutshell, it was.
So you saw the vision for this coming together of a lot of different,
and that's just the daytime. Like there was a whole like circus performance aspect of it too. So on Friday and Saturday night, we had high level like circus performers that tour professionally, because a lot of those are like people that are involved in our community at this property. It's called the Lookout Arts Quarry, and we also had a troupe come in. Lookout Arts. Okay. Yeah. So we had aerialist, hoop and lyra. We had contact juggling, which is the glass ball that you balance on your body. We had like a full-on New Orleans troupe that came and did chair balancing, acro and aerial, and like hardcore dance. It was phenomenal. People's jaws were dropping. They didn't expect that. Like they thought they were coming for this like conference with a bunch of workshops, and then it segued into like high-level circus performance, and then the night it took off into fire arts. We had the Zepto Space, which is a local troupe out of Seattle, and they had set up this pyramid with rugs and fire in the middle, like a fire that you could sit around and gather, and then this woman like singing, and then there'd be like fire artists performing with their fire fans and steel mace, like fire arts and staff, and then there was 2 like live stages with music with like 20-something DJs locally from all the way from Seattle to Vancouver. So yeah, it just like it was a bunch of people. Like I knew everyone on production. They're all just like homies of mine that I was like, hey, come do this Flow State Summit.
Buzzing at like 100 the whole time and loving the fact you put this fucking thing together.
Yeah, it was like a different kind of high. I didn't do any. I was just telling Antonella and Jordan, who I was hanging out with earlier, no drugs for me. Just totally like absorbing the high of like, whoa, this is happening, and I'm like kind of helping orchestrate this, but I kept my name out of it. Like no one knew that this was my event. Like I just was one of the teachers on the poster, but for all they know, it could have been ran by like a bigger company or whatever. But then
it was run by the universe, actually.
It was co-created by everyone involved on production. We had about 75 people on production. So
wow, yeah, that's fantastic.
It was awesome. Stoked.
Damn.
And next year is going to be even better. Flow State Summit. Shameless plug. Get your ass there, because your life could be changed.
Well, you put yourself in the situation where it says a lot about you that you didn't put your name all over it. I don't really. I was told this back in the fitness industry as a CrossFit coach, right? It's like don't work somewhere where someone's name is above the door, right? The owner of the gym, like it's a thing. Like,
very wise advice, actually.
You don't like you're walking into a situation there where it's.
I totally worked for someone in New York.
The first gym I worked at was named after the owner, and I thought it was actually named after the street, but it was like no, it was definitely the
and how did that play out?
It was a blessing and a great experience for me that ended really aggressively. There was a lot of my ego was fucking boiling over, and so was my bosses, but. Yeah, it was a great learning experience. But anyways, we'll talk about that later. No, but it was really funny. So it's, to say that you put this thing together and you kept your name out of it, and you even use words like co-create. Like it was co-created by everybody who shared your vision. really the collective consciousness that shared this vision for this thing that. And I think you have the mindset of it could have been, it can be so many things. Like, you don't have this kind of dogmatic approach like this is what it has to be. Even in the way you explained it, it's like a 3-phase or 4-phase day that really spans a lot of different interest levels, a lot of different modalities, a lot of different disciplines and ways of learning and using your body. That's incredible. And do you think that that's kind of a more, I would say, advanced or conscious way of leading and being a leader in
Absolutely.
the way in what we need now?
Yeah, and that, I think, with the whole like back vision of it, like not everyone knows that it is my peace leadership project that I'm taking upon myself to grow as a leader. But yeah, absolutely. I think that to facilitate adult learning at a high level where we're able to absorb not only the intellectual information that's being disseminated through these high level teachers and founders and flow coaches, but also to embody the physical experience, we need to have a fully immersive experience that's also out in nature where we can be unplugged. So for me, I teach seminars globally with Club Yoga. I've done that for the past 6 years, travel all around the world doing that. And there's just this like sterile environment of going into a door, like a room, with 4 walls and no windows, that I really wanted to facilitate adult learning in a different way. So Flow State Summit was an opportunity for all walks of life to experience these high level coaches in nature and in sort of a free expressive environment. There's a body of water on the Lookouts Quarry called the Quarry, and it's just there's a floating dock on it. There was a stage there, so there was music going all day. So people with like acro yoga mats. So people were doing acro yoga classes on the floating dock. People were doing sup yoga, and people also it's clothing optional. So people also were naked. And then Sheath Underwear just happened to give out like hundreds of pairs of free underwear. So people are either rocking the Sheath Underwear topless or nothing at all. You heard. So yeah, I think that that adds another layer to it. Like in our community at the Lookouts Quarry, we swim naked. Like it's very like natural to us, but some people thought we were like a nudist colony because we had that element of it. But also they realized like that's taking away another layer of like
literally taking away layers.
Like for me, like I used to get nervous when I would do my annual Orcas Island retreat. I do this like dual seminar at Orcas Island for Club Yoga every year, and just to be naked in front of my students was like a big deal because we had the soaking tubs. You should actually check out if you're back to the Pacific Northwest. They have these soaking tubs overlooking the water, and you do soaking tub, sauna, and like kind of alternate between the two. But I used to get like uncomfortable, like, oh my god, what if my student sees me topless? And at this event, I've grown so much in my being comfortable in my own skin and like who I am, like what I represent, that I was like giving people hugs like fully naked, just like
naked hugs,
doing naked handstands. There's people doing naked yoga. You saw a lot of things at the Flow State Summit.
Naked yoga is great. I mean, I guess it's
people were doing it and we supported them. I didn't necessarily.
I'm totally in. Dude, that's something that floats your boat. Get after your naked yoga.
You should see the.
I'm just saying, like from my experience, like it just in having a dick and balls, like in gravity. I think that like a down dog. Anything, child's pose. Anything that I just don't.
Puts your butt in the air. It makes you feel shameful.
No. It's about just the danglage.
Genitalia.
It's just
the dangle.
It's just dangling.
Well, Sheath Underwear actually.
Yeah,
they have
fantastic.
a pocket for the shaft part.
I'm gonna wear my Lululemon and my compression shorts. I'm fine. I'm good to go. But I'm also not scared to be naked. I just don't want to be doing yoga.
Yeah, totally. I mean, in San Francisco, there's like rooftop naked yoga, and I do yoga naked on the dock all the time because I live there and I'm by myself, so I'll do it naked, and it feels pretty damn good, not gonna lie. But I think in front of people is a different thing.
I mean, I get little manzillion wax every now and then, and that's vulnerable. I'm opening up there, taking off layers of hair.
There's a lot of nerve endings in that area. Not a fan of
waxing
your
downstairs.
Nope.
It feels good. It feels nice.
It hurts like a mother. It's worse than childbirth, especially on the clitoral hood. Yeah. Anyway, bringing it back.
I've never had my clitoral hood waxed.
That shit
but
hurts.
Your taint is kind of interesting. It's more just like an interesting situation to put yourself in. Guys, if you're out there and you haven't ever had your taint waxed, highly recommend you get that taint waxed, just because it's a novel experience and it's a good story.
How about sugar waxed? That makes it seem a little less like intrusive because it's sugar.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's equally.
We digress.
intrusive.
Maybe we can have some sugar waxing at next year's Flow State Summit.
If there, I don't
There's
know.
some crystals on it.
That's not the great. I don't think it's getting into quarry water or sweating.
It could be just like a little vendor, like on the side, like go wax your bush, and then come do some.
You could do some bush
naked
art.
yoga.
You should get them doing some. They could make like sacred geometry in your pubes.
That's next level, bud.
I mean, I'm into I'm a visionary. The people have been calling me the next Elon Musk. So we're just out here trying to change the game, and I think that sacred geometry.
People call you the next Elon Musk.
Yeah,
Who?
People are
Who
saying
are these
it.
people?
People on Twitter.
Oh,
it happens.
I don't
But
hang out on Twitter.
when you host one of the best podcasts in the game, like people are coming at you with all kinds of praise, and I don't, it's whatever.
It's a rough life.
I'm just trying to put it all together.
So back to that ego above the door thing.
I'm actually gonna name this the Connor Show.
The Connor.
Yeah, I'm gonna take my own advice and just throw it away. No, but I think you should get Alex and Allison Gray to do pubic hair art. And while you're on DMT, I think you should smoke DMT. And they have 8 minutes.
Combining and merging too many fusions. Let's just talk about fusionness for a second, because there's a lot of fusion
there is
a fine line between.
What is the line? Where does the line? Where does it begin and end?
Okay, so have you seen the baby goat yoga where
that's
the
stupid.
goats are?
It's dumb as fuck. It's called a petting zoo. Go to a fucking petting zoo. Get your shit. I'm not trying to do yoga with goats.
That's something that maybe we don't need to merge. But hey, people are enjoying it and they're finding unity and they're laughing and they're they're opening themselves up in a new way. So
I
that's
feel
cool.
bad if you do goat yoga and you put it on your Instagram. Like, I'm probably gonna like that. I'm gonna double tap that photo, but at the same time, I'm just kind of like, you could also just hang out with the goats without any kind. You don't need an excuse to hang out with goats. Goats
it's a fusion, though. I mean, there's what other crazy fusions are there out there? Like beer and yoga, that's a fusion. I don't necessarily.
I do yoga and mimosas. I've done that before.
Yeah,
but it wasn't during. It was afterwards.
There's vino and yoga. I don't know. I've kind of stopped. Like, I kind of turned my brain off to like just paying attention to how many fusions, and also like what I teach is a fusion of strength training, yoga asana, and club bell. So
yeah, I feel like some things are meant to be fused. Like Pilates and yoga. Just some yoga Lattes fusions. I've been in that. They call them different things, but
we're in we're in this state of like constant fusion.
But they're mixing like Peruvian food with Japanese food. It's like, what are you doing? It's weird.
Yeah, pulling the reins a bit, guys. Tone it down.
Yeah, I don't know about the fusion. I mean, it's weird. But the thing about it is, when you take something that works, right? Say like what Stephen Kotler and Jamie Wheel talk about, name drop.
What do they do that works?
Well,
I love these guys. I'm super
creating
stoked
a flow
to go
state,
hang out
right?
with
It's
them.
like, okay, cool. Let's create a flow state, and then, all right, you get you're essentially manipulating your environment to create a challenge for yourself that requires a really focused and dialed in mindset. I think that's fantastic. I don't know if that's what you would describe it as, but I'm the expert. Okay, so
no, that's what we were doing at Flow State Summit, was doing that without trying.
Exactly, yeah. And you like, I would do
forcing.
that. I would do it on my dirt or my mountain bike. It was like I would just go. It's like, what is like 2 or 3 degrees past what I'm comfortable with, and I'll go there because I'll probably be fine. But it makes me I have to be extremely present.
Mm-hmm.
Yoga's like that sometimes. Swinging a flaming mace is probably going to do that for me. CrossFit's been like that, and competing, walking on my hands. Like, there's things like that, right? Like getting into heights, like all kinds of stuff, right? So we had this like way to manipulate your environment to create a state of flow. And the word flow is like, oh, that's cool. It's like the coolest new thing now. And now it's fucking everywhere. And it's like, what does flow even mean anymore? We've taken it and just beat the shit out of it. Just like consciousness, just like, it's like we need new words. The word truth even has been just beat to shit. I'm like, what? Your truth? Your truth. There's no such thing as your truth. Your truth is not a fucking thing. It's like, well, I'm just living my truth. It's like, you're living your fucking opinions. Let's call it what it is. And I think there's something to be said for taking words and just beating them to death. It's like, God, now I gotta think of another thing.
Yeah, like at what point does the word flow become diluted and lose its meaning because we're just throwing it around, or everything?
Yeah.
Like 2 of my businesses, Flow State Summit and Flow Shala, like I actually have integrated them into my domain name or whatever, the name of the actual business. So I'm totally guilty of that too, with just,
you're part of the problem.
I'm
Summer.
using the word flow but I also feel really passionate about it, and I would venture to consider myself a flow expert, at least in the physical applications of how to facilitate a flow state during training, and also in other areas like personal development too, flow state of mind coaching.
So how do you do that?
Flow state of mind
You're
coaching.
like, because I think you'd really embody it well. I wouldn't have like put everyone else on blast if I didn't think that you do a great job, because my opinions matter the most. And so how do you do that? You work with people, you work with movement, you are hands-on with people. You just did a session with me that was fantastic, and it was a little mini session that was kick-ass. Thank you for that, by the way. So how do you incorporate that in even personal development?
Well, firstly, when you're trying to facilitate that flow state of mind, you're actually like shifting your brain waves from beta, so being in your prefrontal cortex and being in that analytical thinking mode that's highly correlated to stress and anxiety and depression and even.
Yeah.
And you're shifting your brain waves to actually be a different level of hertz into theta brainwave state. And theta is highly correlated to altruism and connectedness and like really like noticing your surroundings and being grateful and seeing the unity in all things, similar to how you would experience that in a psychedelic experience. So basically training your brain to be in a theta brainwave state often, or in a flow state where you can tap into your imagination network, your salient network, your motivation and drive, and work in all networks concurrently, where you're jumping from network to network. So like tapping into your EI, your emotional intelligence. So long story short, you can facilitate that in your work life by waiving your in the style of training that I do physically, we do what's called a 4-day wave. So it goes no intensity, low intensity, moderate, and high. So it's actually a wave.
Yeah.
So your no day is your joint mobility and your self-myofascial release, and your yin, just really getting into that calm parasympathetic state. Your low day is just your yoga, so your primary series or your sun salutations, A and B, like repetition, getting into the breath. And then moderate would be your 70% of heart rate max for those trainer folks out there. That's when you're getting into like an interval training. So you're doing your Emotum, your AMRAP, whatever your timing interval protocol is. And generally within that timing protocol, if you're training your breathing using like discipline level breath or force level breath, discipline or flow level breath, you're actually facilitating the neuroimmunoendocrine response to kick on. So your brain actually gets more efficient in that 12 to 18 minute mark, where you can actually execute the movement patterns with more precision. And then your immune system ramps up and your endocrine system balances. So you can look that up, neuroimmunoendocrine.
So say that slowly, and I want you to explain it more, because that's really cool.
Yeah. So neuroimmunoendocrine.
Neuroimmunoendocrine. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So basically, like when you see everyone getting into animal flow, like that style of training, I've been training that with a master, Scott Sonnen, for 12 years now. And he's one of the founders like in the flow industry, and he created a huge body of work with extensive research. So I actually taught a few of his flow fit seminars for him when he was busy, so he just asked me if I could jump in and teach. So I taught about 3 or 4 flow fit seminars, so integrating and teaching the science of the neuroimmunoendocrine response and how to facilitate that during training. So something happens where you actually get completely immersed in the action at hand, or you experience spontaneous joy from the activity, or you're completely present, you're hyper focused, you're executing, but you're also doing so in a way that allows you to just facilitate, like the exercise actually breathes you. So you don't even have to think about breathing anymore, because you're breathing.
Say that again.
The exercise breathes you.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty rad. So like, for example, everyone knows like if you're following any sort of animal flow stuff, the tripod, like the tripod hip extension, where you're putting one hand behind you and you're reaching the other hand up. That's called the tripod vertical.
Yeah.
So in flow level of breath, which is like the 4th level of breath in the 5 levels. So there's bracing breath or fear reactive breath, which is at the bottom of that like 5 breath scale. This is Scott Sonnen's work. This is part of the teachings that I facilitate. So in fear level breath, you're bracing down, you're holding your breath. We don't want to be there. We want to get out of that level of breath. So the next level up would be force level of breath. So you're breathing out in the concentric and the eccentric phase of the movement. So imagine me doing a tripod. I'm breathing out through the mouth as I extend my arm overhead, and I'm breathing out as I come down. So in both directions, I'm facilitating a force level breath. And the the inhale is automatic. So we have a reflex in our body that allows us to inhale. So we move from force level breath then to our discipline level breath, which is a forceful breath out upon contraction. So when I'm bearing the most load, so as I'm lifting my hips up, that would be perceived as the most load. So I'd be breathing out and then I'd be inhaling on the way down. And in flow level breath, it's actually the opposite. So you would be inhaling as you extend, because as your rib cage expands, your body wants to take more air in. So you're inhaling upon expansion and exhaling on the eccentric phase. We're getting really geeky if people don't know what eccentric and eccentric is.
No, I think everybody's on board.
Okay.
We got some smart listeners
So
out
essentially, like in yoga, you're and in that style of functional movement training, the exercise starts to breathe you, where you don't even have to think about it. It becomes automatic, and you're always breathing in as your body is an extension, and you're breathing out as you recoil. So that's one example of flow.
No, that makes a ton of
application in physical training.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Because you're starting at the easy. It seems like it's almost the easiest way to bring in level 1, or
force level breath.
Yeah, force level breath, where you're looking at you're essentially breathing, like you're making it easy to be conscious of your breath. So I'm trying to say there, and you're making it easy. So it's like it's a nice way to bring awareness to the breath, and that's something that we don't do often. And then getting to the point where it's a subconscious, and the movement breathes you. That's a really cool way to say that. I fucking love that.
That's why TACFit right now is like taking off. Clubo Yoga, people experience it, and we have this little gear shifting system where if an exercise is perceived as difficult, we can scale it down and go back to that force level breath. So when I'm swinging the heavy clubs, like I swing like 25-pound clubs, like not a problem.
Humble brag.
But it's because of the training flow. Like I don't look like I should be able to move
I
at
think
20.
You're fucking jacked. So I think I'm like 25 is like.
Could probably go up to 30. Probably. I don't have 30s right now, but I can get some 30s.
Deal. Yeah, we'll figure
Send me
some
30s.
If you just get some 30s and set those motherfuckers on fire.
Flaming club bell. Now that would be a thing.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
So yeah, the flow science stuff goes deep. Like it's not just like that's why when people are like throwing around the word flow, I'm like, okay, I actually understand what it actually means to let your movement breathe you and to facilitate the neuroimmunoendocrine response. And I've seen it heal, people that have like autoimmune disorder, people that have crazy back pain. Like we're talking about your stuff going on.
Listen,
let's come up and do some flow.
I've only had back pain for like 12 years. Okay, so it's not a huge deal.
Oh, okay, yeah, and people accept it as normal. Like I feel like people accept when they have back pain or when they have an issue, like this is the new norm. I'm just gonna work around it. And there's ways to facilitate your nervous system letting go of that pain and creating a new pattern. But it has to do with the breath, and it has to do with the 100%. Fascia and the nervous system.
Yeah, I think the breath is immensely powerful. I mean, spending some time. I was so grateful to be able to spend a little bit of time with Wim Hof and see. Because when you see these practitioners, right? Like I've also been, grateful to spend time with guys like Jamie Wheel a little bit, and I'm like, oh, this guy's the real deal. Like he's almost like he puts me into a flow state in conversation because I have to keep up with him.
I'm so excited to meet him. I'm gonna be hanging out with him.
He's an awesome dude. He's my roommate works with him on some media stuff. So I'd like randomly walk into my house some days after the gym, be like, "Oh, what's up? Jamie's in my living room." And I'm like, I'm gonna have this conversation. But I've been really grateful and blessed to have those kind of people around. And one thing it seems like in every practitioner that ends up falling into my life, breath is an extremely important part of the practice. And whether it's bringing conscious awareness to the breath or the way that your movement affects the breath, like it just always comes back there. And in my breathing practice or learning how to breathe, and you could probably shed more light on that just from watching me breathe earlier if I am off the base here, but came from fitness, came from the gym and wearing a heart rate monitor and started understanding how much breath could affect the way my body functioned. It was so strange to be on what they call now an assault bike, and it used to be an Airdyne or like a fan bike, and be in the middle of interval training and like it's watching my heart rate, watching my breath response completely control my heart rate level.
Yeah.
In real time, I was like, holy shit, this is wild. And then the same thing in yoga, when you get to the point in yoga, which I don't have a super developed practice, but where you don't have to think about breathing. You're like, oh, I'm doing it right. Like that's like super beginner level yoga. I get it. I'm a noob. But even and then really the largest manifestation of that has been in meditation, and how that completely facilitates. And I've done ecstatic breathe or holotropic breathing and stuff like that. And like I said, Wim Hof, and I've had some pretty crazy experiences, but just the almost normal and really common experience that you can have daily in meditation just by focusing on your breath. The capacity of breath to fucking impact your life is so incredible.
So there's another really good application for that way, exactly what you're talking about in training, like in moderate intensity and high intensity training, which is like basically strength training and HIIT and intervals.
Yeah.
Is training heart rate recovery. And we do this in clubbell yoga, we do this in a lot of modalities with the clubbells, but there's a very specific style of breath called the chug breath, which is a deep inhale through the nose.
Okay.
Big one. Like you're taking it like like that, and then a suspended pause, and then 4 counts out by the mouth. And so like in between our rounds, it's like inhale.
I like that.
Suspended breath, so that's called the kumbhaka in yoga. It's like no one owns this or patented. It's just like
no one owns it?
No one owns. You can't patent that kumbhaka.
I'm going to buy that shit today. I'm buying that domain
But
name.
it's really like training your heart rate to recover so that when you are going into that next round, which is you're facilitating stress on your body by lifting at a high speed and all that precision involved in things, but can you get your heart rate down as quickly as possible before entering that next round? And that's really what I take really seriously at the Flow Shala and all of my like physical training modalities, is how can we help people have that as a tool so that when you are placed under stress, that your first response is not to ramp up your cortisol levels and your norepinephrine levels, but can you actually take a moment, breathe, and have your body respond by triggering your parasympathetic nervous system instead of the opposite, which is sympathetic. So that's why I kind of probably seem a little bit more chill, like with how many things I have going on, is because I train that often. So my body's like accustomed to that.
So just so we don't get too deep into the weeds, so parasympathetic is
triggering the calming response, the relaxation.
And sympathetic's more like tense.
Yes, like the fight or flight. Yeah. Good stuff.
I mean, I knew that.
You knew that, but just throwing it out.
But just just to clarify. So I think that's one thing that I've noticed I really do want to explore this a little bit with you, is in a mindfulness practice or a spiritual practice or a meditation practice or a being practice, depends on who you're talking about or who the teacher is.
Well,
right?
all of those things are different things, like seated meditation. Which one are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, no. It just let's. Okay. Broad mindfulness, right, is the ability to, and Shogam Trungpa Rinpoche talks about this a lot, and I love it, is being able to feel those emotions, right? And I think this is part of being emotionally intelligent and emotionally capable. It'll feel emotions come up and not attach to them or identify with them and allow them to be felt and pass. And in one thing that I've noticed in my own experience is how much breath and, I mean, doing the reps, right? Spending the time with myself to know what that sensation feels like, right? Like know what like this sensation of judgment. It's so crazy to watch yourself judge someone else and then try and not judge yourself for judging someone else. And then feeling like a judgy asshole.
Oh my gosh.
And you have to,
all the layers.
It's crazy and it never stops, right? It's just like a hamster wheel of bullshit. And I can't say there's one thing that's done more for that than breath, but it's a part of all these practices.
I think breath is a tool. Like we have this innate ability to control our breath in such a way that will allow us to be in a calmer brainwave state, which will then transfer over to how we see the world. But we choose to, for whatever reason, whether it's environmental, whether it's the rate in which our lives are they're just on fire right now with emails and technology and Instagram and social media, all that consumption of like digital media and content all the time. You know that life? Yeah. So it's like,
I know that life.
It's creating this sort of brainwave state that is we're just constantly comparing ourselves to others. So how can we take the time to like get our minds back, and get out of that low grade fear response that's like epidemic right now? And how can we have just daily practices and self-care practices that allow us to like remember who we are and like what our highest truth is and like what our true purpose is? So for me, like float therapy, getting more into cryotherapy after Flow State Summit, yoga practice, movement practice, dance,
Yeah.
flow, like all those like physical practices are all available to all of us, like essential oil use. Yeah, all the things.
All that stuff that you can get at the hippie stores down the road. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that store.
Well,
Everybody
everyone
has
can
those
get
stores.
it, but the discipline of actually like applying it and using it often is different than just buying a thing.
Well, isn't that so important?
You can't buy the breath.
You can't buy breath. Yeah, I don't think that's how it works.
Trademark breath.
Don't chill on your breathing over there. You're gonna cost me too much money. But no, there's something. Well, I wanted to explore with you when we were talking about chakras earlier.
Oh yes.
And I recently got criticized for having a closed heart.
Oh.
Yeah.
By whom?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But somebody that I trust was like, oh, your heart's like just not super open, which I don't disagree with.
Well, when I was doing that little warm-up stretch session on you, I was like, breathe into that dead zone, that area that's not moving, like up there by your chest. I didn't mean to call it the dead. I shouldn't even label it.
No, it's fine. But
it was like not moving. Like
I
it
noticed
was like
that, and I wanted to bring that up because it's. I want to look at this and be like, okay, well, that's something I was actually in a sound healing, at our retreat, and I remember taking this little journey inside myself in the sound healing, I was like melting into the floor. It was a really cool experience. Have you ever done like a really intense, well done, channeled sound healing?
Angelic breath work in LA. I did a 2-hour intensive or just a workshop with this woman that leads that, and it was like
the most. It's some of the most transform. It's a wild experience. But I remember getting inside my chest and noticing like I don't really like feel my heart, which I used to. You have these kind of heart-centered meditations. I had a really transformative kind of heart-opening experience in Peru, on Huachuma, and it was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. And I have this actual kind of visual representation, this visionary practice of where I would see my heart and I would be able to do things with it, like depending on what it was, or I'd be able to kind of let that fill parts of my body that I felt contracted or dark or things like that. And it was a really strong practice for me that I'd kind of let go. You know, have practice kind of come and go, and I'd do other things. And I would remember being in the sound healing, looking in my chest and kind of like feeling like I don't feel my like heartbeat. I don't feel that light that I'm used to seeing there. And I got some messages from that, and then going into like 2 weeks later being like, oh, it just keeps coming up. And then you and I sit down here and I'm breathing, and it's like, oh yeah, breathe into that like part of your body that's like not moving. And then I do, and it's like, I feel almost like cracking. I was like, what in the fuck is going on? And I'm curious, and we talk about chakras and things like that earlier, that apparently don't have a color. That's
energetic centers for those of the non-dogmatic standpoint of
yes. What the fuck ever, it's cool. I did
chakras, energetic centers, interchangeable.
I like the energetic centers a lot better, but it's almost hard to deny those things exist. If you've ever like felt into yourself and be like, oh, like this spot feels weird, this spot feels really open when I'm around this person, and it kind of haphazardly happens. But what is your take on that? And we can use me as an example if you'd like, but in that kind of locking up of spaces in your body.
Sure. So from the understanding that I have about energetic centers from a non-dogmatic viewpoint, and I've studied this both in my yoga practices and also read quite a bit with Anadea Judith, who's a great resource on energetic centers. But generally in your areas of your energetic centers, which could also be referred to as the chakras, you have concentrated nerve ganglia around those areas.
Okay.
So that's where you get that sort of somatic feedback, which is the sensation of tightness, restrictedness, or the opposite, which would be like expansiveness, openness, possibility. So when you use
possibility in there,
just throw parts of possibility in there, because I mean, what if you could feel open? Like you're usually, when you feel more open and expansive, you have more room for growth, and you're like, oh, I can do this. Like you feel like a physical, visceral feeling of like a weight being lifted off of your chest, like. So
experience abundance. Like I say that.
That too. That's getting real hippy dippy and wooey. But we'll just throw that in. Sprinkle a little abundance when we're talking about terms and words.
Yeah. Well, no. I've seen people. This is a side note, but I've seen people that are super fucking on their grind. They're like on the grind. And they're talking about an abundance mindset, and they're like fucking aggressive. And I'm like, dude, you seem like you're.
That just seems like greed to me.
Yeah, I'm like, you just want a lot of shit.
So when you're tuning in though to an energetic center, specifically your heart energetic center / chakra, you're either going to be balanced in that area, excessive, or deficient. So if you're feeling deficient and blocked there, like you're feeling a disconnect from that area, it could be from a trauma that you experienced in that really activated or was impacted in that specific area. So if you went through like a really strong like emotional or relationship connection where there was like heart shattered, like maybe there's still the remnants of that trauma still embedded in your fascia and in the concentrative nerve endings within the fascia surrounding your heart. So the heart's like a really important organ in our body. It pumps the blood throughout the rest of our body. So there's, of course, it makes sense that there's a lot of concentrated nerve endings there so that we can get feedback and know when we need to protect and when we need to take on that posture of like protected heart.
Yeah.
So then it translates into like your physical posture of you carrying yourself in such a way that you're protecting that energetic center. And then you start to, it's like a feedback loop of now your posture is rounded, now you're protecting even more, and you're even more like embodying that sort of fear state. So there's ways that you can release the fascia around it through doing more heart opening asana, so doing more back bending, doing more like shoulder opening. Like you could do, I'm an ambassador for Rad Roller, so you could be doing self-myofascial release for your shoulders and for your thoracic spine and for your solar plexus, and like getting into that area and just doing more heart opening asana, and also training your mind to kind of delve into like what comes up for you when you're in those pose focused classes or pose focused sessions that are you're really tuning into that fascia. And like usually you'll have like an energetic release. You'll be like, oh, that like it just kind of will happen automatically if you're tuning in to it.
Yeah.
And people like oftentimes will like cry in a yoga class, or they'll have like an emotional release because they're like, oh, I finally took a full breath, like I was able to finally lift that. So that's like one approach to it from the physical sort of realm. But then there's other you could try to figure out what thought or what subconscious self-limiting belief it's tied to. So like when you think about that restriction there, like what comes up for you, or like what's the thought that you're replaying without even really realizing it? Like, is it about self-love? Is it about compassion? Like, do you look at yourself in the mirror in the morning and say like, you are the fucking shit, you're beautiful, like I love every part of my body? Or do you have a different dialogue in conversation with yourself? My this is to this, and my knees are to this, and I look this way. Like, are you being self-critical of your physical vessel, and is that your subconscious dialogue or unconscious dialogue that's happening? So it's like heart energetic center is a lot about like self-love and compassion, and like actually like truly loving who you are, and then that translates then into like relationships with other people. Like when you and I hang out, I feel like it's a very like brotherly, sisterly like connection. Like we have similar interests and we have this like good rapport.
We both have green eyes and dark hair.
Yeah, all the things. But it's like, I guess it just shows up more in like relationship stuff. Like, are there any unfinished sort of business or like a letter that you need to write to somebody that like caused you an impact in your life that you need to write that out and get that out and like symbolically release it in some way?
Yeah.
So those would be my thoughts on it for you. Does anything in that?
Oh, I mean, yeah, totally. And think intuitively, I know. I just love. It's one of those things that I love hearing and learning more about, because I think everyone's perspective on that, if you're tapped in or tuned in to that world, is so eye opening. Because there's things that you said there that I think are really, really land home with a lot of people, and the feedback loop is so important as well, right? It's like it's this. Again, the word consciousness is one of those words that we can say has been kind of beat up, but becoming conscious or self-aware of the way that your thoughts can run away with you, and then your thoughts turn into your posture, which turns into this like creaking kind of closing and shutting off. And I think for me the work has been that, in this recent huge pattern shift in my life. Like that stuff's coming up for me, and I believe this more now than ever when things come up for me. Like you were saying, I created a complete shift in my entire life by just leaving the place I've been for almost a decade, like leaving Austin, just being like, I'm going to go and just float around for a while, because I have the ability to do this for a living, which I'm beyond grateful for. It almost doesn't make sense how stoked I am to be able to do this all the time, and I love this, and I feel like I get to live a life on purpose. So for me, I feel very privileged in the way that I get to look at this and be like, oh, there are some things around expectations and relationships that are incomplete, and I actually have the capacity to look at those now, because I've created a fuck ton of space in my life, where I was like, create a bunch of space without even any intention for it, besides just to let it be space and let things pop up as they will. And dude, it's been so good. So it's one of those things where I'm actually trying not to be so critical of myself on that journey. I actually wrote about this the other day. Wrote a little post about this, but I'm not ashamed of the fact that my like heart's kind of closed off, because that would be a negative feedback loop. It's like I don't want to experience shame because for whatever reason, like there's some things going on there that need to, like, I'm not gonna force it. I think there's more often than not people rush getting over something for the sake of being strong. Like I can fucking deal with it, and it's like, well, you didn't embody the lessons that you learned. You like rushed yourself back into a state of looking in and being perceived as resilient or strong, but you're gonna trip over your own feet again, and you could have just learned. You could have just been patient with yourself, especially be patient with your fucking heart and your body. Like there's something to be said for that for sure. And yeah, I like being in that place. I feel extremely grateful, and again, like on purpose with what I'm doing. So yeah, that stuff comes up for me now because I created the space for it to come up, and I'm getting to address it one layer at a time.
Well, to me, you definitely seem like you're living from your heart, and I think a lot of people try to live from their mind, or like we are so hardwired to just like overanalyze everything and weigh the pros and cons and be these like logicians. But why not just live from your heart more? And if something feels good in your heart, you can sense that. Like you can, like for me, doing the Flow State Summit was a very like heart activating event. Like being in a teaching role like feels very heart opening. Leading others like feels like I'm on the right path. And if you're living and embodying like living from your heart and serving, like it comes back to like serving others and like helping empower others to do the same. Like that's, I mean, not everyone has the ability to be in the healing arts, but have we seriously gone for 2 hours?
No, an hour.
Oh gosh.
It starts at 1. It's all good. Don't freak out, guys.
That heart chakra moment with that, but bringing us back down.
Bringing it back. But so when you say that, not everyone gets. What did you say?
Not everyone gets to be in like the healing arts field, but you can still serve others. Like the best entrepreneurs, the best leaders are serving others. Like they're using the power, the finances, or the earnings that they get to give back to the community, or to like heal our environment, or to heal. Just to be able to have like a sustainable business that has like good practices, they're giving back to the planet.
It's funny. I was in that same sound healing where I couldn't feel my heart. I remember. Do you ever get mantras and things like that when you do work, like really clear words that just kind of like you almost like get. Happens on mushrooms a lot. Happens not in meditation so much, but usually in something where I'm really. And
it's been happening for me in meditation lately, especially with being off of just taking a cleanse from alcohol and cannabis.
It's so good.
It's like my mind just.
Getting rid of weed has been so helpful for me. My mind, super plugged in. I mean, I'm not get rid of it, but it's like I'll smoke like twice a month, maybe.
Yeah. But the mantras.
I got this phrase just kept coming back, and this thing just said connect and receive. And granted, I'm at a retreat that I'm running, right? My responsibility isn't to have a transformative experience in the sound healing. I'm trying to kind of hold space for everyone there, make sure everybody has a good time, and consciously not going super deep, because it was my responsibility as a facilitator. But I kept getting this connect and receive, and seeing this, how I wasn't allowing myself to receive from people. It was so fucking weird. Like I didn't deserve it. So strange. And I was actually, so, if you're listening
how did you notice it that you weren't able to receive? Like, did somebody point it out? Did you?
It was in that sound healing. It was just like, it just snapped. I was like,
were you able to connect but not receive?
Yeah, it was interesting. It was like, I was giving all the time. That was what I was trying to do. And I wasn't like I was intending to be selfless or trying to be self-righteous by, I give so much. It was just what I was geared to do. And I understand that now. I've been told since I was a child, like a small child, I've been told I was selfish. And I was the oldest of like the second generation in my family that got, you know how it is when you have like older kids and younger kids. I got aunts that were like 12, 14 years older than me, and then us, we had more money, we had more this. Life had changed a lot for my family in that decade and a half. So I kind of bore the brunt of like I was bigger and I played a lot of sports, and I was like, I got a lot of attention, a lot more attention in my younger years than most people did. And I was like the first grandkid. It was just all those things where because of that, like I got this like, you're a selfish asshole type of like label when I was like 5. Like,
oh,
fuck,
gosh.
guys. Like, that's when I moved in with my
Sticks with you.
grandparents. Like, so.
That's the heart stuff right there. And now you're getting into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I've unpacked that a little bit and been like, oh, wow. Like, I've been told I was selfish since I was a child. Like, that wasn't like a thing that I thought about it from like being in high school and college and stuff like that. And I was okay. But I said, no, I was like a little fucking kid. And I think the biggest thing was like, oh, I'll show them. Like, I'll like self-sabotage myself into not having a lot so that then maybe won't think I'm selfish. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. But I've been unpacking that for like a year. And I'm like, man, that's fucking crazy. Like, I did that. I saw that in my fitness career. I saw that in the way that I've been in places where I couldn't emotionally embody and really believe that I could be a part of something where people didn't need something from me all the time. I did some muscle testing. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it talks about your kind of emotional intelligence and how your intellectual and emotional beliefs can be different, and they don't really line up. When they don't line up, that's when you see a lot of this self-sabotage. And in the testing, she had me say, I'm happy being a part of a community that needs nothing from me. And I couldn't like get through it.
Interesting. Why would she have you say that?
Because they test you, right? So they would test your arm.
Okay.
She would say that, and it would be like, and I would like feel my shoulder drop, and I'm
Okay.
like, what the fuck is going on? Like, because I believe that, right?
Yeah.
And then I realized like she had me go back to when I was 10, in this thought. I mean, I get into this shit. I love this stuff. And she, for whatever reason, 10 was the number she came up with. And I remember my being in a place where I had these girls that were our age that lived across the street from me, and we had a couple. I think by that time we had like a pool and like we had toys and shit. And so people would come over, and it was like they wanted everything else, but it wasn't really because of me. Like, I never had.
They just want to play with your toys.
I did, yeah, and like flirt with the girls across the street, right? And it was never because of me. And I remember even acting like that in high school. Like, I just had to like do something to have friends, because I couldn't just have friends because I was, good enough.
Interesting.
And then even to the last really community I was a part of, I remember asking like the leader of that community, like what role do I have? Like, what purpose do I serve? Like, what value do I bring? And the fact that the answer wasn't, I don't fucking know, we just like having you around. Like, that's what I would say to somebody. Like, the answer was like actual tangible things that I could then measure myself upon for the value that I added to my community. Like, get the fuck out of here, dude. I don't need that shit in my life. Are you fucking serious? Because I can talk to girls well?
Oh,
come the fuck on, bruh. Like, I'm not trying to live that life. Like, you need me to meet girls because I'm tall and attractive and gregarious.
Gregarious.
Come on, dude.
That's
I
good
don't
that you
need
should.
shit. But it's like I'd put myself in that situation over and over and over again, with really great intentions, coaching fitness, doing everything for other people. Like, it was like that. But it wasn't that. But I was being super selfish about it. I didn't even know. It was like I just needed to be. The selfish part was me proving that I wasn't selfish. So I was being selfish and doing that. It's a fucking mess. And I unpack this, and I'm like, God damn, it like melts my brain. And then I look and I can like in my meditations go back and see myself asking like, what value do I add to this community? Like, what the fuck kind of question is that? If someone asked me that, I'd be like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, fucking pass that joint and fucking
It's not necessarily a bad thing to add things to your community. Like, we've had to do little exercises like that in our yoga teacher training, where everyone writes on a card like what your attributes are, and I always got like strong, leader, like fierce, like those are like my attributes, like
yeah.
But I guess like tangible things where you feel devalued because you're like offering a
well, I mean, like, if you asked me that, I'd be like, I don't know, I just really I love talking to you, and I feel good when I'm around you.
I get that a lot too.
I don't need other like, that's, it's like, well, because your social media following is pretty good and really engaging, so I hope that maybe we can post a photo together, so maybe I can get like 20 or 30 followers. Like, that's not what people are actually saying.
It's just a low vibrational thought, though.
It's so fucking surface level. I can't handle it.
Yeah, and I think oh gosh, this is gonna get
say what the fuck you need to say, dude. Once you get past the hour mark, like, shit gets real.
So dude, that's a lower vibrational thought when you're concerned with the validation from the Instagram following and followers. And for me myself, like, it's as being a leader and being somebody that co-creates a lot of things and leads a lot of people in different areas, and trying to like balance that with like the importance of being liked and followed on social media. It's like, if somebody's sole like thing that they care about is that, I would I would just steer clear and be cautious and like
why don't
tread
people
lightly.
consciously no. I think it's slippery as fuck. I think that we're hardwired to want to be accepted, and when your social currency becomes something that doesn't really exist in the social media world, it's hardwired in our DNA to want to fucking be accepted, and that's like the way that you measure someone's acceptance. I mean, let's get fucking serious, dude. Like if you're posting ass photos and you, even if there's a quote attached to it, like, well, you're not a thought leader, you're a fucking Instagram model, right? And that's okay. Like, own it. Like, I love the girls that will post the ass photo and be like, this is an ass photo, and then the ass emoji with some hearts and some flames. Thank you for at least being authentic in what you're doing. It's like, hey, here's a fucking
got a nice
ad.
ass.
Like, you got a nice ass. Put that shit out there. It's not gonna last forever, but I think there's something to be said for like the approach to the world that's so connected and unconnected. And people say this shit all the time. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I want to acknowledge that we are hardwired to want to be accepted. And you can be pretend accepted, but you can't be pretend connected. I just made that up, and that is a
that got deep.
Great line. Sorry.
Just repeat that again. Just let it resonate. You can be.
I don't even remember it. I blacked out.
You can be accepted, but you can't be. You can be pretend accepted, but not pretend connected.
Yeah, you can be.
But that's like heart chakra stuff. It's like people can feel it energetically when a person walks into a room if that person is balanced or bringing good energy to the room, and same thing, like you can feel it if that person's closed off and like their energy is like heavy.
Yeah.
You know, you can feel that. Like our hearts are so sensitive. Shiva Ray has an awesome book on
Shiva Ray.
Yeah, Shiva Ray. She's one of the lead yoga teachers that started making vinyasa and flow vinyasa like popular 25 years ago.
Thank you, Shiva Ray, for being a leader.
She's amazing. She's so inspiring. But there's a way to also measure the magnetic frequency that emanates from the heart. Like there is actual energy there, and you can feel it. So living from your heart is like not just like a wooey thing that you say. It's like living in a way that resonates and vibrates compassion, gratefulness, gratitude, connectedness, like being able to connect well with others, being able to hold eye contact with others. Like that's like all heart energetic center balanced sort of markers. Yeah,
it's weird. Eye contact's a good one.
Limbic system balance. If you are imbalanced or like you have a deficiency in your limbic system, I've had clients, they would come into my studio and have their eyes like closed and fluttering like this, and like not be able to look at you in the eye because they're just so in such a state of like fight or flight all the time. Their nervous system just shot, their limbic system's totally off. But you can bring that back to balance with the practices. Self-care. Actually, when I posted a little thing, speaking of Instagram, this is one way to actually use it for a good thing. You can do these little questions, so people that are watching your feed, I was like, what do you guys want me to talk about on the podcast? And a couple of them were like that, like not limbic system balance. It was like motherhood and like being an entrepreneur as a flow, and like merging flow arts and like motherhood. But I think for me, like being a mom has opened my heart in like totally different way than I ever did in any romantic relationship, because I have this little human that just depends on me all the time.
Like lived inside of you for a while.
Yep, that I sort of grew in my belly, and
almost a full release, like just fucking was in there just.
But that's
like
like even though the umbilical cord gets cut, it's like your connection with your mom, if you get to have that connection, is pretty strong. And so like he just emanates love. He's just this little love being, and I often call him my teacher. Like he's one of my teachers because he's just like pure love, and he doesn't have any of like the jadedness or the predisposition to thinking like the world is bad or like pessimism. He's just like eternally optimistic and just full of love.
Yeah, that's how I feel about my dog. Your kids probably better at it.
Dogs and kids.
Puppies are like, I mean, the dogs have a weird wisdom, but they do give you if you I think honestly doing mushrooms with my dog, like he didn't do the mushrooms, I did the mushrooms, but he was my like trip companion for several times. We ended up having this really interesting like relationship where I didn't even feel like he just kind of lived with me, but he wasn't like, I didn't own him. But he was so fucking stoked, and he forgave so quickly. He would be so happy about whatever's going on. And if he got in trouble, or if I was being a dick, He would forgive me pretty quickly. He would be fine. We'd be cuddled up on the floor
What
hanging
kind of
out.
dog do you have?
Golden Doodle. He's like a tall, big.
Awesome.
He's like an old school.
Where is he now? He's not traveling.
He's with my mom.
Oh, okay. In
He
Austin.
can't travel with me. I can't just like take him on the plane. He would be fine.
He's
Everybody
like your
would love
kid.
him.
Well,
He's
I guess
like
sometimes
my
you gotta
best
leave
friend.
you gotta leave your
He's my
kid at
best
home
friend.
sometimes.
Yeah, leave your kid at home sometimes. We'd leave him with grandma. She loves him though.
I did that once when I went to Peru and Costa Rica for 3 months. It was the longest I've ever been away from Cedric, and my heart literally I could feel was like it hurt. Like it literally hurt daily. After the first month, I was like, this was a bad idea. What the fuck did I do this
How long were
for?
you down there for?
3 months.
Oh wow.
And I think I topped it off with like Envision. Then I like flew to Spain and had a seminar there. So it was a long time of being away from him.
Were you so stoked when you got back?
Yeah, I was super stoked.
Was he freaking out?
He had changed a lot. I think he was mad. Like I think he genuinely was like hurt that I was gone for that long. So that hurt a lot too because he kind of gave me the cold shoulder. He was like 3 or 4. So yeah, when I finally got back,
my kids start being a dick.
No, he just was like, don't leave me again. I was like, okay.
Yeah, they don't do that.
But when we were talking about heart stuff earlier, did you say when you were in Peru you worked with San Pedro or which? Okay.
Washima, yeah.
Washima, okay.
Because
that's a great heart opening.
Oh, dude.
Plant medicine.
100%. If I could say there's one, it was like I was blasting rays out of my heart into the fucking world. It was the first time I'd ever seen my heart, and I didn't lose that after that. I could meditate it back, and it was really cool. But I was literally hands on a table exchanging energy with this like super old piece of stone that was like a piece of, I don't know what it was made out of, but it's a huge rock, probably like 2 feet thick, with shaman skulls on it. And all kinds of artifacts from the tradition down there in the Andes. And it was wild. It was wild. And I was like kind of pushing white light out of my heart, down my arms, into this table, and then getting this other colored light back. It was like I would push in and get it back. And by this point in our San Pedro, like it's an 8-hour experience. Like everybody else is kind of just done. And I'm like, hit this. I think I just took everybody else's experiences and just like embodied it myself. I was having the craziest closed eye visuals at this table, and it was wild, but that cracked me open in a way. So now I get to at least notice if the heart's there or not there. So
yeah, well maybe that's
trying to spark that bitch back up again.
Maybe just taking into account all your knowledge on what psychedelics or different plant medicine or whatnot can facilitate heart opening. I'm not going to mention any specific ones, but doing that in a controlled environment where you're facilitating your own growth, and then as you grow. And
what's weird though, I think that I don't want it from the plants. I don't feel that draw. I feel like right now with the plants, I'm with the plants and the retreats that I'm running, and in my role now as I would consider myself like a leader and living a really full life. Whatever, and I mean a full life in a way of like I'm actually allowing myself to believe that now because it's what the world's telling me to do, and it's funny I can say that and not feel like weird about it. And with that, I don't think that I want to use the plants to tap into my heart right now, but I would like to not use people, but let other people show me. And that's one thing that with this big kind of surrender experiment and leaving Austin, I wanted to do was just open up to work like you just did on me before this podcast, right? Like getting some body work done and just completely I can sit here and tell you what I think's going on with my hips, but it's like, I want to hear what you have to say about the way that I'm moving, the way that I'm living my life, the way that I'm being in the world, and really just taking on the role of a student and teach from a place of learning and allow that to happen without feeling I have to have this like intellectual one-upmanship with people that are around me. Like I would just jump in classes now. I do fucking whatever yoga classes around. I'll do a kettlebell class. I'll do a flow class. It's like, and I don't need to be like, oh yeah, I used to own a gym and then I coached for however long. And I was like, it's like, I don't need to be recognized as being like relevant. Again. I just fucking I just pay the class dues, which I used to not have to ever do. Right. It's like not a thing. I'm like, I'm just here and I just want to experience people, and my connection with people, like I do want to receive from people. What I was saying earlier about that is I was actually going back, and since we're relaunching the podcast, the big part of this shift in my life is relaunching the show. So you'll actually be on the new feed. You'll be on the new feed. This will be your second show on the new feed.
Sweet.
On the proper Realness feed, the real Realness feed. And I was going through and editing out the old outros because you have to edit them, and I'm going to put the new ones in there that fit the new feed. And I was listening to people at the end of the show telling me, like, as soon as they would say something nice about me, I would immediately spin it back on them and then end the show.
To not receive it.
Uh-huh. And it was fucking weird. And as we were talking, I realized I was like, they're like, hey, we really, I really love being on your show. And I was like, even if they were just saying thank you, I'd be like, yeah, whatever, okay, bye. It was like weird, and I was catching myself because I did it 30 times a day because we have 30 new shows going to the feed.
Wow.
And I was like, holy shit! Like I was really just like
deflecting it. You're like, I will not accept that love that you just shared with me. I'm gonna lock it up.
It was funny. Like somebody, the girls in the Shameless Sex podcast were like, hey man, you're awesome. We really had a good time. And I was like, where can everybody find you on social media?
Just like completely ignore the question. So that's awesome that you can like recognize that pattern though, because that's like how you change stuff. Is becoming aware.
Yeah, and I get told it's not,
Is this the part where I then overwhelm you with
no,
gratitude
I'm
and compliments?
I'm not reaching, but if you do, I'll just take it and appreciate it. But it's like even launching the podcast and it not really even being told like it wasn't mine. It's like it was for something else. It was for another company. It was for whatever. Now it's like, oh, this is like me embodying myself now. It's been a fucking journey, but I love, and I'm so grateful to be a teacher from that place.
Well, I feel such a shift in the way you're conducting this podcast versus the first one. I think that it feels very focused. It feels very much like focused on healing and embodiment and body, mind, and breath and all that good stuff. That
mind, body, spirit. That's what we're about.
Yeah, and I think that stuff, those conversations need to be brought to light by people of your experience and stature, because then it's just going to bring more people that are like you or coming from similar backgrounds to it, and just expanding the tribe.
I love that.
And then we'll have really big drum circles. It'd be great.
Big drum circles, great drums, and I think that there's. I've been looking into Shambhala, and that's kind of the lineage of Buddhism founded by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, and he talks about entering the Bodhisattva path there's 3 different levels that you can enter that path, and one is the the trolley driver. It's like where you're just, it's not about you attain. They said that there's one that's the level of the king, right? So it's like you're supposed to attain a place in the world, like a level of enlightenment, and then teach from that place, almost like teach down. And that's really easy for people to understand, like, oh, I'll get there and then I'll tell people about it. And there was one of the trolley driver where it's like you're just supposed to get people where they need to go. It's not about you. You're the essentially you're the bridge, right? Like you're the guy, like load up, like get on the fucking boat, let's go, I'm taking you somewhere, let's do this thing. But it's like when you get there,
what's
it's on
the third one? So we got the trolley guy, we got the king on the mountaintop. There's got to be like a somewhere in between, because I feel like I would be the
king
in-between.
is the easiest one. The trolley is the second one, and I forgot what the third one is. But I think the third one is like teaching from nothing. It's like it's like one of those Buddhist things where it's like it's like you're a beetle and you're like teaching enlightenment from the place of like flying around. Like it's like one of those weird things. You know what I mean? It's like so far out there. Like okay, I think I'm just a trolley driver.
So
guy.
Are you thinking about going and studying this? You said Shambhala.
Yeah.
Cool.
Buddhism has called me I just kind of Buddhism and the plants. I like both. I'll see them in visions, and I'll be like, and it'll keep coming up, and it's like, and I'm like, no, I'm busy right now, dude. I got some things going on. I'm doing this thing and whatever. And now I'm actually allowing myself to really just do what feels like me.
Cool.
Which just be the realness.
That's what you gotta do. It's like the more like authentically you can live, and the more authentic you are. Like I found this. I was like wearing a mask for a lot of years, being like the club yoga girl or the strength coach, or like I can't talk about chakras, even though it's like something that I practice.
Energy centers, Summer.
Yeah, sorry, energetic centers. But then when I started just being my crazy self, like I'm a hippie that lives in a circus community, come hang out with me and my friends. Everyone's like, this is amazing. And I'm like, all right, cool. So that's cool. I don't have to pretend anymore.
Isn't it nice when you're like, man, I was trying so hard for so long, and now I just have to do.
Just
there's
be
yourself. There's a lot of difference between trying to do something and doing something. It's very Yoda, but it's like you just do it. Just do. It's no big deal.
Just do.
Like, and they're like, oh yeah, this is me now. It's interesting. It is interesting, but it's a journey back to yourself,
Just be consistent and be reliable, and like, I've learned some valuable lessons. Like not everything's perfect. I don't align with every single person out there in the world. I've rubbed people the wrong ways. I'm kind of a fierce one too. I sound like really chill and mellow in this, but I have like really strong opinions about certain things. And, it's just like being respectful of like when there is a situation where you don't align with people, that you can still support them alongside them and not butt heads with them and just be like, all right, our paths are different, but that's okay.
Well, isn't that such a distraction too, to just butt heads with somebody, to get like super wound up by someone? And I find myself doing it, and it's one of my, I think as men too, it gets really, I think men it gets more confrontational, women it's more sly. It's probably harder for you guys now, actually, that I think about it.
I don't necessarily butt heads with women, but I do butt heads with men.
I can see that.
In positions of leadership, and it's happened quite a few times in my life. And
when's your birthday?
June 7th.
I was going to give you some astrology, but I have
Gemini?
nothing. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, but I took a personality test. I think it's the Jordan Peterson one. Josh Nordwick sent me that one.
Are you not very agreeable?
I'm not agreeable. I have zero politeness.
You know, my politeness.
I think we had similar ones.
Well, yeah, you told me they were almost always they were almost all the same. My politeness was like I was in the 3rd percentile.
Mine was 0. I was like,
you're literally 0.
0 politeness. I'm like a pretty nice person.
I was like I was like 40 percentile agreeableness. Were you very conscientious?
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Oh. I have to pull up my stats, but it was like really extreme. Like it was like 90s and zeros, or like 95s and zeros. I was like, wow, I'm like totally on the other end.
That was a really comprehensive test. I put it all over my Instagram, but it's understandyourself.com.
Yeah.
Check that out.
Is that the one?
Sure.
It's $10, but it's like a full battery.
You find discount codes out there. It's like $8.
Oh, save $1.
You can listen, everybody's out there trying to
Realness.
save $1.
Or wait, the Realness is the code.
Onnit.com/real. Save you 10% off your supplements if you have a disposable income. Well, this has been fucking awesome.
Yeah,
I'm actually loving the longer form. Like, I'm like, oh, it's an hour. Let's wrap it up. It's like, I'll wrap this bitch up when I want to.
Yeah.
And I want to.
Damn straight.
Right now. After you, first off, tell me how awesome I am. Second, tell me where I can find you on social media and how people can get information for Flow State Summit 2019.
Sure, yeah. So flowstatesummit.com. I have a contact form there. I'm the main organizer. So if you really want to get at me, that's the spot you can go. Summer Huntington on Instagram, Summer Huntington on Facebook. But what else? I got a bunch of businesses. I got business websites up the ing that are not really like Club Yoga. That's my website. Fit Body Wellness.
We'll link to your Instagram and the Flow State Summit.
If you just Google my name, you're gonna find like a million things. So
you kind of have like a porn star name.
Summer Rose Huntington.
Ooh, yeah, dude, you're definitely a porn star. You've been lying to me this whole time.
No, I thought of it as a power name actually, but porn star. Let's just take that one out. No.
Yeah, right? We'll put all that stuff in the description as well as all the other pertinent links to anything we talked about in the show. Summer, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and honor to be here and share the knowledge. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you again soon and hanging out and stretching and doing some club stuff.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
That is our show, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you love summer, and I hope to see your happy ass at the Flow State Summit and the Realness Retreat. Both of those things are there for you. They're going to be fun. They're going to be expressive. They're going to be a little bit wild on both counts. So we'd love to see you there. I want to thank Whit Blue and Ross Shiflett for providing our podcast music. Two good friends of mine that I'm really grateful to have contributing to the show. Now, if you want to get in on some of that lifestyle design, that is also over at gettherealness.com, as well as the Facebook community. We got Facebook Lives in there every week. Man, I think that's about it. I hope you can hear all these bugs that are going off in the jungle in the background. It's a nice little serenade for the end of the day. Love you guys. As you know, if you make it to the very end of the podcast, you've got a special place in my heart, and I appreciate all the support. Drop a review if you got a little time and want to share a little love. And this is Ross Shiflett playing you out with a nice little ditty. We'll see y'all next time. Much love, hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.